Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my Hoot Crew. Night Owl here. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. Today, I'm going to be reading The Atheist Who Didn't Exist. I do want to say I will try my best to read without stuttering or making mistakes, but I do tend to do that because I do get nervous sometimes. So bear with me while I read. Okay, so today is chapter 2, and this one is called The Scandinavian Skeptic, or Why Atheism Really is a Belief System. Now, most atheists say they don't believe in anything, but to believe in something, they do believe in things. So, I don't know. I don't believe that Sweden exists, my friend suddenly announced from across the coffee table. There, I finally said it. He took a long sip of espresso and stared fiercely at me, clearly daring me to respond. I paused for a moment to think, my cinnamon roll halfway to my mouth as I digested what he'd said. Pardon? Sweden doesn't exist. I'm a Scandinavian scoffer, a Nordic Nulliphidian, a Sveriginian skeptic. Sorry if I pronounce those wrong. Clearly the professor of quite some thesaurus. But seriously, you don't believe in Sweden? That's right. It's obvious when you think about it. Sweden is just a political conspiracy invented to motivate other European citizens to work harder. All that talk of the best healthcare systems, the highest standard of living, tall, svelte, and beautiful people. Come on, it sounds more like a myth every time you hear it. But I'm not fooled. I do not believe in Sweden. I stared at my friend. Sorry, I'm just going to turn off my phone here. There we go. All right. I stared at my friend silently, allowing the sounds of the coffee shop to drift over us for a few seconds while I pondered. In the background, the radio began playing Dancing Queen by ABBA. You're insane, I said. What do you mean you don't believe in Sweden? That's ridiculous. If Sweden didn't exist, how do you explain IKEA furniture, or the Swedish Chef, or the Muppet Show, or what glues Norway to Finland? What a staggering claim. What's your evidence? Evidence, my friend asked. Yes, evidence. Yes, surely you have more than just a hunch, a bunch of prejudices, and must save some pretty impressive evidence for your belief. I realize that Sweden has only 9.5 million inhabitants and more moose than men, but you can't simply deny outright that it exists. My friend knowingly, I see your problem. My problem? Yes, your problem, in fact, your confusion. You think that my denial of Sweden is an actual claim of some kind, and it's a belief. But it isn't. It's a non-belief. There's nothing I need to explain. Rather, I'm talking about something I lack, namely a belief in Sweden. So I don't need to give any evidence for it. Come again, I said. Yes, he continued, warming to his theme. I don't have to provide evidence for my non-belief of Atlantis, El Dorado, Shangri-La, or the customer support department in American Airlines. And nor need I for non-belief in Sweden. I'm not making a claim of any kind. In fact, quite the opposite. I'm claiming nothing. I'm merely rejecting one of your beliefs. Your belief in Sweden. Now, quit arguing and pass me another slice of Princess Tarta. Sorry, Princess Tarta, I guess. While the dialogue was unsurprisingly entirely fictional, the response from my friend concerning the reasons, or rather the absence thereof, for his doubts about Sweden have some real-world parallels, especially in the way that some atheists like to describe their non-belief in God. The argument goes this way. Atheism is a disbelief in God, and therefore one does not need to give reasons for it. The idea lying behind this, that atheism is pure negative, the mere absence of belief, and it is only positive beliefs for which we need to provide reasons. For instance, should I claim that my bathtub is presently occupied by two magnificent hippos who are at this very moment engaged in a hearty duet of Mud, Mud, Glorious Mud, one singing, one accompanying on the kazoo, then of course I can be asked to provide evidence. On the other hand, I announce, my bathroom is entirely devoid of the examples of hippopotamus, amphibious. I need not go any further to justify myself. So is atheism purely the absence of belief, a wholly negative claim? Well, certainly many atheists seem to think so. For example, listen to the late new atheist Christopher Hitchens. Our belief is not a belief. That's a mental tongue twister if I ever saw one. Here's another example. This is from one of the evangelistic young atheists who hover around the my Twitter feed like moths around the hurricane lamp. Atheism isn't a claim. It's just non-belief in the claim that there's a God. I have lost track of how many times I have heard variations of this. Rhetorically, it's a smart move. If atheism is simply a negative claim, the mere absence of belief, then presumably atheists can sit there and throw stones at everyone else's belief while not having a brother justify their own. Like my friend in the coffee shop. They can innocently deny they are claiming anything and refuse to give any reasons. However, like many secular soundbites, the idea that atheism is a non-belief is riddled with as many holes as Swiss cheese. Let's explore some of the chief difficulties with the idea. The first problem is that the statement atheism is just non-belief in God proves too much. What do I mean? Well, if the claim is true, consider what it entails. I would mean, for instance, that my cat is an atheist because she does not believe in God. Likewise, potatoes, the color green, Richard Dawkins' left foot, small rocks are all atheists because they too do not possess the belief in a deity of any kind. Like the IKEA food hall, something here smells a bit fishy. When I've mentioned this to atheist friends, the usual response is, but a potato can't believe in anything. To which I always reply, so you're now saying that atheism is a lack of belief in God by a creature that has the ability to form beliefs. You see, that is a different claim entirely. Why? Because it's a positive claim. My atheist friend is now claiming that she believes the external world really exists, that we are not simply brains in a jar, our thoughts and experiences manipulated by those of the humans in the Matrix movies. Furthermore, she is claiming that other minds exist, that it is possible for the human brain to form beliefs, and that our thinking is more or less reliable. Suddenly, what looked to be a simple, innocent statement of non-belief, I don't believe in God, has suddenly morphed into not just one, but a whole series of positive claims, popping up like mushrooms after a rainstorm. This is hugely significant because I have not yet encountered an atheist who believes that positive claims do not need to be argued, for indeed, atheists are fond of crying evidence, evidence, when confronted with a religious believer. Now, sauce for the goose is definitely sauce and for the oven-ready chicken, and thus the atheist is likewise required to give evidence for each of the philosophical positions they are encamped on. If they are not willing to do the hard thinking that this involves, well then, they can take their place along with the cat, the rock, and a potato. Oh, and Richard Dawkins' left foot to boot. However, it gets worse. Think back to our Scandinavian skeptic and his idea that the claim Sweden doesn't exist. It's not a belief. If he is correct and it is not a belief, then sure, I guess he doesn't need to defend it. But at the same time, if he is correct, then something else follows too, namely that his statement cannot be true or false. Like many philosophical ideas, this can take a moment to get into your head, but when you grasp it, it's obvious. The problem is that only beliefs or claims can be true or false. For example, if it makes perfect sense to ask whether a statement such as "it is raining today" or "Maple Leafs lost a hockey game again" or are true. Those are claims, they are beliefs, and they have what philosophers call a truth value. They are either true or false. On the other hand, it is utterly meaningless to ask whether the color blue, a small off-duty Slovakian traffic warden, or Richard Dawkins' left foot is true. That would be a bizarre category error. These things are not claims or beliefs and thus do not possess any kind of true value. They simply are. So what about atheism? Well, as far as I can make out, I think my atheist friends are claiming that their belief is true, that they really, really believe it to be true that there is no God. Well, if that's the case, then it makes atheism a positive claim, and claims must be defended. Evidence marteled, and reasons given. Otherwise, if atheism is not a claim, it cannot be true or false. It simply is. And to say I am an atheist, it is up there with saying wibble, wibble, wibble. If my atheist friends wish to join the conversation sensibly, and I believe that atheism deserves its seat at the table of discussion as much as any other worldview, then they must recognize their belief for what it is and engage accordingly. Hang on, though. What about the hippopotamus? I hear some readers cry. The hippopotamus? Yes, the hippopotamus. If you say it is true, then surely announcing there's a hippopotamus in the bathroom also is a positive belief, and thus I need to defend it. Likewise, my lack of belief in the Tooth Fairy, Bigfoot, the Yeti, and James Blunt's singing ability, doesn't all this get extremely tiring, if not practically impossible? Good point. Does all that I have said mean I have to be willing to trot out to mountains of evidence whenever I admit I disbelieve a gigantic bathroom-dwelling mammals? Well, that depends. Whereas I don't spend much of my day thinking about the hippopotami-free zone in which I perform my morning ablutions. If I daily tweeted there is no hippo, or if I were to start self-defining as a hippopotamusian, people would be justified in asking why, what gives, or possibly, would you like the number of a therapist? I think we all instinctively know there is a definite difference between active beliefs and passive beliefs. There are a near infinite number of things I passively don't believe in. If you were to press me, everything from floating celestial teapots to unicycling unicorns, but I have never not once, felt the need to write the invisible floating teapot behind Jupiter delusion. On the other hand, there are plenty of things I actively disbelieve. For example, I do not believe that George Mallory and Andrew Irvine made it to the summit of Everest in June 1924, beating Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay by some 30 years. I have read most of the literature and the arguments on both sides, so I can give you reasons for my non-belief. For active non-beliefs, disbeliefs to consume our daily energy, for those, yes, we do give reasons, and we need to. But for other lesser non-beliefs, we don't, and thus we can safely dismiss protestations about bathroom hippos and the Tooth Fairy quite easily. Why? Because those non-beliefs don't lead to action. Think about this for a moment. It is only actual existent things that cause anything. For example, dropping a sledgehammer on your foot causes pain. Turning the ignition key in your Toyota causes the engine to start. Touching the screen of your iPad causes an ABBA track to play through your headphones and your eardrums to ache. But non-existent sledgehammers, non-existent keys, or non-existent iPods cause nothing at all. Now, when it comes to beliefs, much the same applies. Non-belief in hippos in the bathroom has never caused anything, nor does a non-belief in the tooth fairy, although it might conceivably prevent actions, such as not putting your teeth under the pillow when they fall out. It seems that for something to cause an action, it has to be a positive belief in actual claim. So what about atheism? Well, it doesn't take a lot of thought to realize that atheism causes all manner of actions. For example, belief in it leads a pretty busy and exciting life. For example, many internet-dwelling atheists spend hundreds of hours reading skeptical websites, editing Wikipedia articles, writing angry blogs, frequenting atheist discussion forums, and posting snarky anti-religious remarks on Twitter. These look very much like actions to me. Actions, I presume, caused by their atheism. The same applies offline too. I know many atheists who attend conferences, buy t-shirts with atheist slogans, or fasten amusing atheist bumper stickers to their Hondas. Some, like Richard Dawkins, wrote books. Now there's a puzzler. Why did Richard Dawkins write The God Delusion? We've asked that question before, but now we can come at it from a different angle. What was it that drove him to pour endless hours into typing, drafting, editing, and refining? Presumably, it was his atheism. Likewise, it was atheism that led many enthusiastic young skeptics to rush out and buy it, causing, if not much rejoicing in heaven, was certainly much celebration in the North Oxford branch of whomever Dawkins banks with. For a non-thing, atheism looks extraordinarily lively, and thus we need to be a little suspicious of anybody who tells us that atheism is nothing at all. Another hallmark of an actual belief is that it has entailments, consequences that follow from it. If I rush out of my bathroom stark naked, a la Archimedes, yelling "Eureka!" and there is no hippopotamus, nothing much follows except possibly a police caution and a recommendation to don a dressing gown next time. On the other hand, non-beliefs have considerable consequences. For instance, the denial that Sweden exists brings with it the need to find a new source of cheap pine furniture, meatballs, and gravid lax. It also has some pretty drastic consequences for geography, requiring a complete redrawing of the map of Northern Europe, as well as having major implications for the writers of the 1970s tribute musicals. So, if a sign of a positive belief is that it has actual entailments, real consequences in the real world, what about atheism? Does anything follow from denying God exists? One of the most famous atheists of the last 200 years, Friedrich Nietzsche, certainly thought so. He wrote this: "When one gives up the Christian faith, one pulls the right to Christian morality out from under one's feet. This morality is by no means self-evident. Christianity is a system, a whole view of things thought out together. By breaking one main concept out, the faith in God, one breaks the whole. Nothing necessary remains in one's hands." Nietzsche is pointing out that just as if you dynamite the foundations of your home, the walls and roof will collapse and you'll be left with so much rubble. So too with God. Many things stand up upon belief in God, such as the idea that human beings have intrinsic value Ethics, law, and human rights theory are based on the belief that you are not just a random collection of atoms, but a person with dignity and worth. From where did this idea originate? It came from the Bible's teaching that human beings are made in the image of God. Reject God by all means, says Nietzsche, but then you must start again with new foundations, explaining why one particular creature thrown up by the blind forces of time and chance churning the primordial soup for billions of years possesses inalienable rights, whereas amoebae, cockroaches, and eggplants do not. I appreciate the honesty of those atheist thinkers who recognize this problem and are willing to admit that if you throw out God, with him go many other things. Novelist and atheist Llewellyn Powys wrote this: "The atheist must be bold to weave a bower of endless night. Upon the very edge of the abyss and of abysses, this precarious cat's cradle, he must make his intellectual habitation. It is not only belief in God that must be abandoned, not only hope of life after death, but all trust in an ordained moral order. We must be prepared to take our bearings without a simple compass and with the slippery deck of our life vessels sliding away under our feet. Dogmatic nihilists, profoundly skeptical of all good, we are put to our resources like shipwrecked seamen. We have no sense of direction and recognize without dispute that all beyond the margin of our own scant moment is lost." If Powys is right, and many other atheists would concur with him, then atheism has some far-reaching entailments. And if it does not require us to dynamite the foundations of niches or toss away the compass with Powys, then that leads inexorably to the conclusion that atheism is indisputably a belief. For how could a non-belief, a non-thing, mere nothingness itself, have such drastic consequences? So, atheism looks more like a belief system, but there's still more evidence to consider. A further hallmark of a belief that it attracts other beliefs to it. Rather, a planet draws moons into its orbit. If I believe that learning the cello takes time and diligence, then other beliefs will accumulate. I will probably believe that I should rearrange my schedule. I will probably believe that I should rearrange my schedule to make time to practice. That it is worth saving money for cello lessons and so forth. Similarly, with my Scandinavian skeptic friend, his denial of Sweden's existence attracted other beliefs such as great global political conspiracy and possibility that ABBA were really just Pink Floyd and drag. More seriously, as a Christian, my belief in God has related beliefs. I believe certain things about who Jesus was, about the purpose of life, about the limited ability of unaided human progress, about justice, values, and duties, and so forth. Beliefs attract related beliefs. So, once again, we can ask, what about atheism? Does the statement, "I do not believe in God," stand alone, stark naked and proud, utterly self-reliant? Or does it attract other beliefs to it? Does it possess a kind of gravitational pull? Once again, it is tremendously easy to show that atheistic beliefs rarely exist in isolation. For example, most atheists believe in naturalism, the worldview which says the only material things exist. Many atheists who also believe in some form of scientism, the belief that science can answer any and all questions, both about the natural world and about the human condition. The list goes on and on. Why do so many atheists have beliefs in common? Is it just random happenstance, like the way that folk music aficionados end up sporting beards and homemade knitwear? Not really. This cluster of beliefs is driven by atheism. If you believe that God does not exist, you are highly likely to believe in physics. Chemistry and biologically can explain anything, everything. You will also be tempted to pounce opportunistically on materialism as a way of keeping the divine foot out of the door. One of the methods that astronomers sometimes use to detect distant planets far beyond the reach of even our most powerful telescopes is a technique called Doppler spectroscopy, a posh name for what's more colloquially known as the wobble method. As a planet orbits its star, gravity causes its host star to wobble slightly. Detecting this allows scientists to deduce what nearby planet is present. This is a helpful analogy for understanding atheism, for despite Christopher Hitchens' protestation that our belief is not a belief, so many other beliefs are affected by atheism, drawn into its orbit as it were, then we can safely say that those who protest that atheism is not a belief do protest too much. There is one last powerful piece of evidence that atheism really is a belief system, if not even more than a belief system, and that its increasing tendency to function as an identity marker. For example, Christians gain their identity from their belief that God revealed himself uniquely and supremely in and through Jesus Christ. Manchester United fans are united in their belief that their team's usual prowess, supporters of the Liberal Democrat Party, are united in their belief that it would be a jolly good idea to send their leader on a speaking tour of Australia, or Azerbaijan, or India, or anywhere, really. This uniting under a belief is shown by the language that people use. I am a Christian. I am a Manchester United fan. I am a liberal Democrat voter, which I am not. Sorry. We don't see anything similar happening with genuine non-beliefs. I have never introduced myself to anybody at a party by saying, hello, I am an Athistarian. There are no university groups for disbelieving in Father Christmas, nor annual conventions for those who think that Atlantis was a myth propagated by Plato. On the other hand, many atheists do use their non-belief in God very much as an identity marker. They introduce themselves as atheists. They proudly write freethinker or skeptic in their social media profiles, with more zealously enthusiastic changing their profile pictures to little icons of flying spaghetti monster. Furthermore, many atheists show a tendency to gather together in a community centered on their atheism. Sorry. Some hang out online at places like Richard Dawkins' website in order to beat up on non-believers and remind one another how cool it is to be an atheist. They attend conferences, groups, and seminars. They buy the atheist books written by the atheist gurus. They have creeds and accuse those who disagree with them of heresy. They are even starting churches. Really? I am not making this up. In North London, a few years ago, a group of atheists launched the Sunday Assembly. Sorry. Where each week, hundreds of people gather in deconsecrated Anglican church to sing secular songs, such as Stevie Wonder's Superstition, and hear messages on everything from science to the importance of volunteering. They then sit around and enjoy coffee and biscuits. All this raises incredible questions. One concerns how long such atheist churches can function, especially as personalities and factions arise. This can be difficult enough in religious communities, but at least in those cases there exists a strong glue that binds people together despite their differences. In the case of churches, trust in Jesus is the common element that should unite Christians despite gender, age, politics, and fashion sense. We're even supposed to love Star Trek fans. But all that aside, reflect on this question for a moment. If atheism is a non-belief, a non-claim, a non-thing, how can it perform at any level as an identity marker and as a kernel of community, however tenuous? Isn't there a much simpler suggestion? Namely, that atheism is a belief system, and just like other beliefs, ranging from the political to the religious, can indeed form part of a person's or even a community's identity. Whichever way you consider, atheism looks like a belief, functions like a belief, and behaves like a belief. In short, it is a belief. But can we go further than this? Would it be possible even to describe some forms of atheism as a religion? Some scholars of religion think that you can. For instance, Stephen Prothero of Boston University said this: atheism is a religion of sorts, or can be. Many atheists are quite religious, holding their views about God with the conviction and zealots of evangelizing with verve. It stands at the center of their lives, defining who they are and who they think, and how they think, and with whom they associate. The question of God is never far from their minds. I have found that even hinting at the idea that atheism might be a religion is a sure way to cause some atheists to go nuclear. But here's the important thing to consider. Simple belief in God does not make one non-religious. There are plenty of religious people who don't believe in God, such as many adherents of Buddhism, Confucianism, and forms of Judaism, and most of the Canadian United Church. To be religious doesn't simply mean to believe in God. So what does it mean? A very helpful suggestion once was offered by sociologist Emil Durkheim, who defined religion as an undefined system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things. By sacred things, Durkheim meant anything a person holds dear, including their ideas and values. It's really not hard to see how atheism, especially with its temptation to fetishize science and reason, fits this definition nicely. There is a second way to think about the word religion, and that it's to consider a religion as a system of beliefs that attempts to answer ultimate question. Is there a God? Why are we here? How do we determine good and evil? What happens when we die? Even the most hard-nosed nihilistic atheist has answers to those questions. No. Time plus chance plus natural selection. Personal preferences, we rot, etc. And so it fits the definition quite well. You see, here's the thing. Everybody has faith. Everybody is religious. Being religious is simply part of what a human being is. As the French philosopher Julia Kristeva put it in a memorable book title, we all have this incredible need to believe. I think that some atheists find this idea frightening because it means there is hard thinking to be done. You can't simply say, "Prove your religion to me," then cross your arms and scowl like a traffic warden with a bad case of hemorrhoids. Everybody has beliefs that are central for them, beliefs that cause actions, beliefs that define them, beliefs that have implications. And for those kinds of beliefs, we can be asked to give reasons. If you are an atheist who wishes to duck that responsibility, then I can do no more to commend you to one of your own, Christopher Hitchens, who said, "That which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence." Quite right, too. Okay, so that's the end of the chapter. I hope that you all enjoyed this. I will be soon uploading some more videos and then chapter 3. The reason I'm doing it this way and reading the entire chapter is because it is quite a long book, but I have other books that I would like to read for you guys as well. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. Please make sure to like and to share it. And leave a comment down below of anything, any questions you might have. And if I can't answer them, I will find somebody to help me to answer those questions. I hope you all have a wonderful day. God bless. Take care. Bye.